Mhm. The morning I found my daughter-in-law collapsed on my front porch, I had been making biscuits. The kind my mother taught me, with cold butter and buttermilk, the kind that fill a kitchen with something that feels like safety. I heard a sound that wasn't quite a knock, more like something heavy leaning against the door. And when I opened it, she fell sideways into my arms. Her name is Renee. She is 34 years old. She teaches second grade. And she has the warmest laugh you have ever heard in your life. That morning, her left eye was swollen shut, her lip was split, and she was cradling her right arm against her chest like it was something broken she was trying to hold together. Renee! I got down on my knees right there on the porch boards. Renee, honey, look at me. She turned her face toward me slowly, and I could see it cost her something just to do that much. And then she whispered, barely enough breath behind it to make sound. He said it was my fault. His mother told him I deserved it for trying to take him away from his family. I did not say anything for a moment. I just held her face in both my hands, the way I used to hold my son's face when he was small and had fallen off his bicycle. And then I helped her inside, and I called my brother Dale. I am 63 years old. I have buried a husband, raised a son, and kept a small farm outside of Millbrook, Tennessee for going on 30 years. I do not say that to boast. I say it because you should know the kind of woman I am before I tell you what happened next. My son's name is Carter. He is 37, broad-shouldered, quiet in the way that some men are quiet when they have learned that silence keeps the peace. I raised him better than what he became inside that marriage, and I have asked myself every single day since how I missed it for so long. The answer, I think, is that I wanted to believe the best of my own child. Most mothers do. It is not a weakness exactly, but it can make you blind. His mother-in-law, his wife's mother, had been pushing Renee since the beginning. Her name is Gloria, and she lives 20 minutes from my son's house, close enough to be in it 3 or 4 times a week. She never liked Renee. She made that plain from the first Christmas, when she looked at the pie Renee brought and said, right at the table, in front of everyone, Carter always preferred my cooking. She said it with a smile, the kind that doesn't touch the eyes, the kind that means something else entirely. Renee had come from a family with less money than ours. She had put herself through school. She drove a 10-year-old car until she and Carter got married, and she was proud of what she had built on her own. Gloria called that pride stubbornness. She told Carter that Renee didn't respect the family, that she was pulling him away, that a woman who had grown up the way Renee had grown up couldn't really understand what it meant to belong to people. I did not know how bad it had gotten inside their house until Renee was on my porch. Dale got to me within 40 minutes. My brother is 70 years old and drives a blue pickup truck and has never once in his life been the kind of man who needs to be told twice when family is in trouble. He walked in, looked at Renee sitting at my kitchen table with ice against her face, and set his jaw in a way I have not seen since the year our father died. "Where is Carter now?" he said. It was not a question. "At work, I think," Renee said. Her voice was steadier now. She had drunk half a cup of tea. He left before it was light. "We fought last night. She stopped, pressed her lips together. He grabbed me. He pushed me into the doorframe. His mother was there. She watched it happen, and she told him he needed to stop letting me disrespect him." Dale put his hand flat on the table. "Gloria was in the house when this happened." Renee nodded. I had been a mother-in-law myself for 8 years. I knew that there were women who wore that role like a weapon. I had never wanted to be one. I had kept my distance, kept my opinions mostly to myself, brought food and left without staying too long. I had tried, every time I visited, to make Renee feel like she was chosen, like she was wanted. Now I sat across from her and thought about all the times I had noticed something small and told myself it was nothing. A look on her face at Thanksgiving, a way she would go quiet when Gloria walked into a room. I had told myself it was just personalities that didn't fit together. I had been wrong to tell myself that. We took Renee to the hospital in Dale's truck. Her arm was not broken, but 2 of her ribs were cracked. The doctor, a woman about my age with reading glasses pushed up on her head, looked at the bruising and looked at Renee and said carefully, "Is there someone at home you feel safe with?" And Renee said, "I'm with her," and pointed at me. We filed a police report that afternoon. Carter called my cell phone 3 times while we were at the hospital. I let it go to voicemail. The 4th time he called, I picked up. "Mom." His voice was tight. "Renee isn't answering her phone. Is she with you?" "She is." Silence. "Mom, I need you to understand." "Carter," I said. "I am going to stop you right there. I have seen her ribs. I have seen her face. There is a police report with both of our names on it now, and I need you to be very careful about the next words that come out of your mouth." He went quiet in a way that told me Gloria had already been talking to him. That voice he used, measured, slightly rehearsed, that was not Carter working through something on his own. That was Carter repeating what someone had told him to say. "She provoked it," he said finally. "You don't know how she talks to me, Mom. You don't know what goes on in our house. I know what I saw on my porch this morning," I said, "and I know what the doctor wrote down." He hung up. I drove home that night with Renee in my guest room and Dale's truck still in my driveway. I sat on the back porch after everyone was asleep and looked out at the fields, at the dark tree line at the edge of the property. And I thought about the first time I held Carter in the hospital. How certain I had been in that moment that I would do anything in the world to protect him. I still loved my son. I want to be honest about that because it is part of the truth. But love does not require you to look away from what someone has done. I had learned that the hard way with my husband years ago, and I was not going to unlearn it now. Dale called me the next morning before 7. "I found some things out," he said. He had talked to a friend of his who worked at the county courthouse. Not anything official, just a conversation. The kind 2 men who have known each other for decades have over coffee. It turned out there had been another incident 6 months ago. A neighbor had called the police on a disturbance at Carter and Renee's address. The call had been logged. Nothing had come of it because Renee had said at the door that everything was fine, that they'd just been arguing. "Please don't worry about it." 6 months. I thought about that drive she must have made, that morning she ended up on my porch, how she must have sat in her car in the dark before she knocked, trying to decide if she deserved help. Dale and I drove to Carter's house that afternoon, not to fight. I want to be clear about that. I am 63 years old and I am not interested in screaming in anyone's driveway. We drove over because I needed to get Renee's things, her medications, her school bag, the things a person needs when they are not going back to a place, and because I felt it was important that Carter see us both standing there, together, so he understood that this was not just me being a difficult mother. This was family. Gloria's car was in the driveway. I had expected that somehow. I think some part of me had known she would insert herself here, the way she inserted herself into everything. I rang the doorbell and stood with Dale, and when Carter opened the door and saw us both, something moved across his face. Guilt, maybe, or the beginning of it. Gloria appeared behind him almost immediately. She is a small woman, sharp-featured, with silver hair she wears very precisely. She looked at me the way she always has, with that particular combination of politeness and hostility that some people have perfected into an art form. "Margaret," she said. "My name?" "Gloria," I said. "I think we all need to sit down and talk about this calmly," she said. "Renee has a way of making things seem worse than they are. I've seen it for years. She's very—" She paused, chose the word the way someone chooses a knife. Dramatic. Something in me went very still. "I'm not here to talk about Renee," I said. "I'm here to collect her belongings. Carter, I'd like you to let us do that without making it into something harder than it needs to be." Gloria stepped forward. "You have no right to come into this house and—" "This is my son's house," I said, "and he is going to make this decision, not you." I looked at Carter, just looked at him. He is my son, and I know his face better than anyone alive, and I watched something happen behind his eyes in that moment. a kind of cracking, like ice when the season changes, like something that has been frozen for a very long time beginning, finally, to give. He stepped aside and let us in. We were in the bedroom collecting Renee's things when I heard them in the hallway. Gloria's voice, low and urgent. "You are letting her walk all over you. This is exactly what I told you would happen. That woman has never respected this family. She came in here with nothing, and she has been trying to take you away from the people who love you since the first day." Carter said something I couldn't make out. "Don't you dare take your mother's side in this," Gloria said, and her voice cracked on the last word in a way I don't think she intended. I kept folding Renee's clothes into the bag. Dale stood by the door with his arms crossed and didn't say a word. The next 2 weeks were the kind of hard that doesn't announce itself loudly. It's just there when you wake up, sitting at the foot of the bed. Carter got a lawyer almost immediately. I found out from Dale, not from Carter himself. Gloria had apparently been on the phone with her own attorney within hours of us being at the house. They were trying to preempt the domestic violence charge, to frame the incident as mutual, to make Renee the one who had started it. But Renee had a doctor's report. She had photographs. She had the neighbor's phone call from 6 months ago. And she had me. I sat with her attorney, a woman named Patricia who wore sensible shoes and had the kind of focused calm that made me trust her immediately. And I told her everything I had seen that morning on my porch. I told her about Gloria being present during the assault. I told her every small thing I had noticed and dismissed over 8 years of watching my daughter-in-law make herself smaller in rooms she should have felt safe in. Patricia wrote everything down. "The mother's presence is significant," she said. "If she witnessed the assault and made statements encouraging it, that changes things considerably." I had not known that. I am not a legal person, but I sat in that office and felt something shift. The way the air shifts before a storm. Not threatening exactly, just clarifying. What happened in the following months I will tell you plainly. Carter's legal maneuvering did not hold. The neighbor came forward on his own, a retired school teacher named Howard who lived 2 houses down, and said he had been worried about Renee for over a year and was glad someone had finally done something. A woman from Renee's school, another teacher, came forward as well, describing things Renee had told her and then asked her to forget. Gloria's attorney tried to argue that her presence during the incident was not an endorsement. Patricia argued otherwise. I testified. Dale testified. Howard testified. Carter, in the end, did not fight it the way Gloria wanted him to. I think that somewhere underneath everything, underneath the years of Gloria's voice in his ear, telling him that Renee was the problem, that a good wife doesn't push back, that a strong man doesn't let a woman win an argument. Underneath all of that, my son still knew the difference between right and wrong. I believe that because I have to believe it. But I also know that believing it is not the same as excusing it. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault. He is in a mandatory intervention program. He is in therapy. He moved out of the house. Gloria was charged with a lesser offense related to her presence and her statements during the incident. I will not pretend the charge was as serious as I felt it should have been. The law is a slow and imperfect machine. But there is a record now. There is a name attached to what she did and what she encouraged. Renee is still in the house. She is finishing out the school year with her 2nd graders. She has a very good attorney, and the divorce proceedings are moving forward. She called me last Tuesday after school, not for anything in particular, just to talk. She told me one of her students had brought her a handmade card that said, "Mrs. Renee, you are the best teacher because you never make anyone feel dumb." She laughed when she told me that. The real laugh. The one that fills a room. I have thought a lot, in the months since this began, about what it means to be a mother-in-law. It is a strange position to occupy. You love your child so much that sometimes you cannot see them clearly, and you can love them clearly enough to see exactly what they are doing and still not want to believe it. Gloria chose to love her son by making his wife into an enemy. She chose to protect him by arming him, and she stood in that room and told him that hurting someone was what a man did when a woman disrespected him. I have never once in my life believed that. Not when my own husband was difficult. Not when Carter was a teenager pushing every boundary I had. Love is not made stronger by hurting someone. It is not preserved by cruelty. The women who teach that lesson to their sons do not love those sons well, no matter how ferociously they think they do. The biscuits I was making the morning, Renee knocked on my door. I never did finish them. I still make them most Sundays. Sometimes Renee comes over and she sits at the kitchen counter on the high stool and talks while I work, and the house smells like butter and warmth. And my brother Dale shows up without being invited because he always does. And we eat together at the kitchen table like people who have been through something difficult and come out the other side still standing, not unscathed. I won't pretend that. But standing. There was a woman at my church who used to say that the bravest thing a family can do is tell the truth about itself. I used to think that was the kind of thing people said when they hadn't really been tested. Now I think she was right. And I think the telling is hard every single time, and I think you do it anyway. Not because it is easy, but because silence is the thing that keeps the harm alive. I told the truth. Dale told the truth. Dale told the truth. Renee told the truth. That is the whole of the story, and it is enough.